She is. I hope you're well. Eat little, speak little, the last one, sleep little, right? We're talking about that. Eating little is an interesting idea. I don't think most of us don't have food issues. I mean, you eat and then that's it, right? Some people have food issues, but we do consume a lot. So if you consider consumption, like as humans, we're always, just like say, Sukhothai culture, we were up there, it seemed that one of their big industries or their big ways of making revenue was pottery. I think that was correct, right? So in that time, someone was consuming Sukhothai pottery. They were consumers, they were buying it and they were using it. I saw a really interesting YouTube thing on rug making in Afghanistan. Very interesting, the whole village involved in making rugs, and they're probably doing that for 2,000 years. Someone was buying it. Someone was buying the rugs. And so we are, as humans, we are consumers. And now we're in a consumer culture, aren't we? People make products and our livelihoods are dependent on it. If we weren't consumers, then how would everyone be employed? We can't go back to the forest because there's no forest and there's too many of us. So that's just part of human culture. And one of the ways I look at the Kama Tanha, one of the three tanhas, which is usually translated as sensual craving, I think usually. Craving for sense experience. But the problem is always the attachment to tanha rather than just the craving itself, because craving comes and goes. It's not a problem. It's the attachment. It's always an attachment we're talking about. So the attachment to sense craving, I perceive it as like our tendency to always be consuming objects. And obviously the one of the foremost or one of the most amazing objects to be consumed is digital information now. And you go to any shopping center, people are consuming, right? We all joke about it, but it's quite, if you walk through an airport as an anthropologist like I do, rather than a self-conscious guy, and just sit and don't do anything, everyone's doing it. It's spooky. It's very, very spooky if you look at it. And 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we weren't doing that. So that what we're doing, I mean, I use the YouTube a lot, especially for furniture making, or let's say we have two trucks actually, a big piece of land, and one of the trucks we can't take out in the public roads because it's too kind of pathetic. But one of the springs broke on it, and one of our laymen is very skilled. He looked it up on the internet, bought a new spring, looked up on YouTube how to put it in, and put a new major spring in the car. That was amazing. Didn't have to take it to the garage, didn't have to spend. So it's amazing what you can do on the internet, and or Dharma talks and so on. But the idea of consuming can be one where the mind is, if we take Luangpor Dun's example, the mind going outside is the cause. So you can see how if the mind is always just engaged in consuming objects, then it's not available to the silence of the mind. And that's why I use the word available. It's not available to that more subtle sense of knowing change. And I think it's in that more subtle sense of stepping back and knowing this moment is changing that you touch that deep piece of the mind that I think Buddhism is pointing to. Consider a retreat then. Like a retreat is we are practicing sense restraint, which in the Pali is Indriya Samvara. In other words, we're not consuming, but we're still having a meal and you know, drinking coffee and things like that. But a lot of our time is not spent in consuming. It's just spent in being, sitting by the river, doing meditation, having a shower, whatever you're doing. And so part of the, I think, hopefully, the peace that comes from a retreat is sense deprivation. So deprivation means you're not given the usual sense objects that you were used to. And that in the beginning of a retreat can produce a kind of restlessness because I like to consume. I like to look at information and I like to read and I like to watch a video or look at the news or whatever. Now you don't have that avenue of consumption. And what should I do? What should I do? Walk, sit. Oh, what can I walk, sit. So we're not consuming there, but we're watching the mind. And because we're watching the mind, the need for objects of distraction. And again, this is not a moral issue. There's nothing, it's not really a moral, it's just the way we're conditioned in culture. So the need to always go out is noticed by just being aware. And then the mind settles down. Why? Because you're not filling the mind anymore, right? And your mind isn't preoccupied with objects. Because part of the problem of consuming is that we consume emotions too. You know, like in English, we'll say he is consumed by revenge. You know that term? He's eaten by revenge, or he's consuming revenge. So we're actually chewing on doubt or munching anger, or if you use that imagery. And that's a kind of consuming too. It's a consuming of the objects of thought. So what we're trying to do is to practice in terms of Kama Tanha, we're not dismissing it, but we're seeing that the need to go out all the time prevents us from noticing the silence of the mind. And that's the model of a retreat, that the renunciant or the sense restraint that we're practicing, or this is called nekama barami, renunciation, produces a very good result. And hopefully, if it produces a bad result, tell Yongpung, don't tell me. But usually it does. And part of it is not so much the meditation technique, it's the lifestyle, isn't it? I mean, part of it is that we are Kalyanamitta, that we kind of love each other and we care for each other and we are cared for. I mean, that's wonderful. So we're not threatened or in competition, and that's very good for the heart. So that helps a lot. But also we are with life, we're with the color, we're with the sound, but we're not going out to it because it's not there to excite us. It's just very neutral. So then, in terms of developing meditation, you have to think about your own lifestyle. What does that do? How do I interpret that in terms of the way I live my life? And obviously, some sense of eat little starts to make a lot of sense. And not just in terms of food, but in terms of the stimulation of our senses through media or whatever. But having said that, once you start to touch the silence of the mind, once you start to appreciate how coarse distraction can be on the mind, how disturbing endless news cycles can be on the mind, you start to naturally prefer the silence of the mind, because it's very, very beautiful and very refreshing and rewarding. So hopefully a retreat gets you in touch with that silence, so that when you go back into the complexity of your life, that you start to develop right living. Right livelihood isn't just about not, say, selling weapons or things like that. It's much more refined. It's about a lifestyle within which you've got enough space that you can touch the silence of the mind. You can process the frictions that you experienced as a human being. You can learn from the challenges that business life or family life presents to you. And that requires space, doesn't it? It requires some kind of inner space. And so, if I think in terms of lifestyle, I would say the most important thing is that morning meditation. If you can develop a strong morning practice, like a lot of people that meditate, they do get up before the rest of the family. Everyone else is like gets up at 6, they get up at 4:30 or something like that. Then you have the silence to yourself. And if you set up your mind in the day, in the morning, with a really strong meditation, then that contemplative part of your being is in operation. So you still have to go to work and deal with things, but now that mindfulness of how your mind works and where suffering is very, very strong. And then ordinary life becomes much more like a learning place rather than just a place you survive or get excited by. And a retreat is a chance to kind of really embed yourself in those kinds of values and practices. So eat little. Okay. We have a lovely workshop in Tisarana, and Ajahn Pavara and I we try to create we build a lot of furniture, tables and cupboards and things like that. And he's a very good craftsman, and we play off of each other's sense of design, and we love tools. We're like big boys. It's, for an old man to have a workshop like this is a dream. And in the workshop, we have hand tools and power tools. And so hand tools, we have screwdrivers, and we have saws, and we have chisels, and we have hammers, we have rasps, and we have files, and all kinds of things. And one of the things we have are hand planes. I don't know how to say it in Thai, but a hand plane is, it's a bed of steel with a blade through it and a handle, and you shave wood. How do you say that in Thai? Nima? Oops, okay. Everyone got that? So that's a hand plane. And Ajahn Pavara gave me a small hand plane, which is called a block plane, and it's just perfect for my big old hands. And I use it a lot. I really like it for finishing work, for doing edging. Very nice feeling. In the same way, so that's one of my favorite tools. In the same way, I think in meditation, you tend to develop your favorite tools. You got like let's say this morning practice of going to the heart. That's one of my hand planes, right? It's a little block plane that I really, really like, and it rewards me in a way where I like to do it. So in the same way, in your meditative life, what are your favorite tools or practices, say? And I only suggest the things that work for me. And if they don't work for you, neither of us is wrong, right? It just doesn't work for you. So, but what does work for you? What is consistently helpful for you in calming the mind, opening the heart, understanding the mind? And I have actually, I've got a good set of tools. But say, as an example, this heart practice, there are so many ways that metta bhavana is described. Every teacher probably describes it in its own way. But I do think the noticing of the heart chakra is very helpful for moving away from the consuming nature of thought. And that's one of my consistent practices, is to shift attention from thinking to the heart chakra. And that's not very difficult if I remember to do it. You just then usually notice thought. You say, yeah, but how does this feel? Notice the mind complaining. Yeah, but how does this feel? Notice the mind with self-doubt. Yeah, but how does this feel? you have a kind of place to go to, and that's not repression. It's not. I'm not denying self-doubt or self-consciousness or anger or fear. I'm just saying, okay, how does anger feel here? Or how does doubt feel here? Or how does love feel here? Or how does joy feel here? And that becomes a reference point, which is not involved with prungdang or papancha. The heart doesn't prungdang, the thought does, right? And so I, like Luangpor Viradhammo, most of us say, I don't believe anything my thinking mind says. It can be such a liar, right? It can say, oh, you better be careful there, Viradhammo. Oh, shut up. I don't believe you anymore. The feeling. But the heart, and also I find, like in being with people, there's an intelligence here. It's a kind of intelligence of, I don't know what it is, but I understand people much better from here than from here. Not that I don't think, I haven't had a lobotomy yet, but I like thinking, I'm not against thinking, but just that the habit of thought and the habit of self, right? That's the real problem of thought. Right thinking is a very important part of Buddhism. Good logical thinking is very important. Analytical thinking is very, very helpful. But I thinking, me thinking, ahankara, mimamkara, that's very, very, it's very seductive and very, very addictive, and also very deluding. It's very, very deluding. Take something like self-doubt. It's just a thought, but it can really bring you down, really take you into depression. I'm no good. I don't know anything. You're wonderful. No, you don't know. I'm not good. No, you're really nice. You don't really know me. Down at the hell. And that's thought, that's Mara. And it seems so real. It seems so very real. So if you try to get rid of it, you say, no, I'm a great person. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, and that doesn't work either, because it's still thought and I and self. But if you have a physical reference, maybe the breath or the heart chakra or sound, you can just say, okay, yeah, that's thought, but there's also sound. There's another sense door. So then you're just moving away from one sense base to another, and that can be done mindfully. And where that's important is in the moods of the mind. And like if you take any mood, take a really obvious example. If you're angry at someone, the object of your anger is this person or those people. And then 2 weeks later, you're angry, and now it's another person. And then next day, it's another person. So the objects of the mood of anger change. But the mood of anger itself is rather fundamental. And the practices of knowing the moods of the mind are very much in terms of like sanya and perception, that this is a mood. And so you have to kind of separate the object of the mood and just to know the mood. So it doesn't matter who I'm angry at. It matters more that I know anger. And that's an easy one, I think, because it's got so much passion in it. But we will forget, or what I'm afraid of, or what I'm worried about. But something like, and those are like strong things, but something like self-doubt or worry, they're more difficult because they don't have much emotional valence in them, power. So self-doubt is still a mood. It creates a certain color to the world, doesn't it? I'd take another extreme. A young person falls in love and the world is wonderful. right? It's just, and it will always be wonderful. The flowers are beautiful. The rain is lovely. Even the smog in Bangkok is lovely. And that's the mood of falling in love. I think we've all been there. And then the person, something happens and that falls away. And then there's the mood of depression. Oh, Bangkok, trees, my mother, whatever you want. And that's a mood. That's a mood, right? And it paints the world. It's constantly painting the world a different color. And what we're trying to do is not to see that this is natural, this is human, but can we step back and say this is a mood of the mind? And what's the reality? Well, that it changes and moves. And that's the way we liberate our minds. We liberate ourselves from these moods that come and go, because they come and go. If we're always just focused on the objects, then, it's endless. It's just endless. So self-doubt, say, something like that. We think that the problem is the doubt, right? The object of my doubt. Sure, in science, yeah. How do we find a vaccine for a pathogen that's infecting us and so on? Sure, for science, you need doubt. But in meditation, doubt is one of the big hindrances, both in samatha practice and in the fetters. And so a lot of Buddhism says, well, just what does it feel like not to know? If you're really invested in intellectual positions and knowing in terms of intellect, then when your mind produces a sense of not knowing, some doubt, then you usually just jump to another thought to try to figure out the doubt. But then you're always in thought. You have a doubt, you have an answer. You have a doubt, you have an answer. You have a doubt, you have action. She loves me not. She loves me, she loves me not. Should I, shouldn't I? It's good, it's not good. So the mind is always just consuming thought. And that's the nature of doubt. But when you can say, well, I don't know, my ru, my ne, this is where my ne comes in, and allow yourself not to know, then you begin to free yourself from intellect. You can still use intellect, but your life isn't dependent on having an answer. And that's a very subtle kind of thing, but that's one of the problems that we have in getting beyond thought. So when you have a doubt starts to come up in your mind about something, can you just say, oh, but what does it feel like not to know? Rather than trying to figure it out with thought. Then your mind will begin to find peace around thought. Now you can use doubt to investigate. I'm not saying that, but doubt, which is always just running in the circles of thought. So I could use doubt to say, I wonder if I try anapanasati, how will that work with doubt? That's just very skillful use of. But what I'm talking about is the endless thinking. There's always a question and an answer. One of the traps we have as human beings, we think that just because I ask a question, there has to be an answer. And because I set myself up, then like rebirth. People ask monks, so how does it work? How does rebirth actually work? Huh? Is the body, how does it work? So if in the beginning I used to try to answer that, so I'd answer it in some, I don't know. I have no idea how it works. But I try to answer because I'm supposed to know. I'm a monk. So I'd give some answer. And then the person would ask another question. Yes, but if that is, I'd say, oh, okay. And then I'd give another answer. And then later on, I'd hear this man ask the same question to another monk. And what about rebirth? How does it really work? And the same discussion. And realize, well, I don't know. There's no answer. And that's freedom. The freedom to know that you don't know. And I like it as a teacher. When I discovered that, I thought, oh, great. I can say to people, my rule. And it's wonderful. But I can say to that myself too, that I don't know. But I know that I don't know. So puru is not an intellectual position of knowing. It's an existential experience of knowing. the experience of knowing that I don't know. You see what I mean? Then you start to get beyond thought, where you can use thought skillfully. All right. So let's do some meditation. Maybe stretch your legs a bit. And we'll sit for 45 minutes. Is my sound okay out back? Yeah. So I'll just keep with the same pattern that we've been using rather than introduce other things. But if you're finding the patterns of meditation that I'm suggesting kind of don't work for you, then use what works for you. Just be very practical that way. If you find that sleepiness is a kind of strong element of the practice, then that deep breathing is probably quite a simple way to try to give more presence. Deep breathing, a good open chest in your posture. And then to deal with sleepiness, the best way is just body awareness, seeing the body start to collapse and bend over. But the deep breathing gets you kind of in the moment, stays in the moment. So if you're getting sleepy, just do the deep breathing for quite a long time. It can be quite helpful. Listen to sound. This idea of relaxed, receptive awareness, listening in that, with that quality of attention. Receptive, relaxed, awake. Now bring attention to your face. Feel the muscles in the jaw. Let the muscles in the jaw become conscious. The hinge of the jaw, the muscles around the hinge, let that come into consciousness. Relaxed attention. Notice the silence of awareness. Feel your temples. Feel your temples and feel the eyes, that whole structure. Let that come into consciousness. Feel the orbits of the eyes, the bony structures. And let the eyes relax. Imagine that the eyes are kind of falling out, forward, relaxing. Feel the jaw. And feel the eyes, the temples. And feel the whole head. Let the sensations that are the head, let them become conscious. Notice the changing nature of sensations in the head. And listen to sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. And then step back and let body manifest, sound manifest, be the witness of change. Don't choose an object. Just be the witness, welcoming change. And then contemplate space. Does awareness have a boundary? Is there an edge to the right or to the left or above or below or behind? Is there an edge? Or is it really boundless, like it has no boundary? So contemplate space, spaciousness. And then the sounds and the bodily feelings changing in this conscious space. Now bring attention to your body. Feel the breathing of the body. Localize your attention at the tip of the nose. Feel the breathing at the tip of the nose. Feel the coolness at the in-breath and the warmth at the out-breath. Feel the right nostril. Feel the left nostril. Feel both nostrils. Now don't squeeze your eyes looking. Just welcome that. Feel a whole in-breath or notice the sensation for a whole in-breath. Feel the whole out-breath. Feel the whole in-breath. Feel the whole out-breath. Pay a lot of attention to the end of the out-breath at the nose. Feel the breathing at the belly. So move your attention to the belly. Feel the rising, falling of the belly. Feel a whole in-breath rising and a whole out-breath falling. Pay a lot of attention to the end of the out-breath. Feel your whole body awareness. Feel the whole body breathing. So the whole body on an in-breath and the whole body on an out-breath. Notice the changing nature of the breathing. Listen to sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. Contemplate space. Awareness, no boundaries. Now be the witness of change, things coming and going. So you can broaden your attention, make it vast, or you can refine your attention down to a small point. I just walked through those to show you how you might play around with that. So I'll leave you just to experiment with that, and we'll sit silently for the rest of the sitting.